35 minutes past the hour. Dr. Deborah Birx has been able to work out to stay with us a little bit longer. So, Dr. Birx, apologies for that hard break. But so let's reset what you were saying, because you're kind enough to stay with us a little bit longer. Bubba asked the question on everybody's mind. And look, you know this as a doctor, and I've heard other doctors in that are your colleagues say the same thing. Science is science, but when politics gets involved, things get awkward. So we're not asking you a political question. We're asking you from what we've been able to find out about this novel virus, to Bubba's point, looking back on what we know now, did we handle it as best we could, or were some things that we could have done different? And you were expanding on that when we went to the break. If you want to reset that, you can, or start wherever you would like to.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we've been really working together across not only the federal government but with state and local officials to really do everything we can based on what we know at the time. And I know it's frustrating to people when that continues to evolve. But just like if a new quarterback came in, you'd have to learn his plays.
Sure.
We've had to learn the plays from this virus. And every time the virus does something that's different than what we expect, we change what we're doing and move with it. And I think the level of asymptomatic spread went from what many people thought was 10 to 15% to now probably well over 40%, but in young people, very high. And I think this level of asymptomatic spread has forced us to figure out with every single state, how are you going to find the people who have no symptoms? You can't really contact trace them often because they don't even know they're spreading the virus. So these are really things that we're working together to do. We're working with every one of the universities because obviously most college students, if they become infected, may have such mild disease that they don't even think they are infected, yet could be spreading the virus. And so these are the things we're working with every university on, how they both diagnose students that have symptoms and how they find the students that don't have symptoms. And I think that's been really our concentration over the last few weeks across the South.
Dr. Birx, if someone has had it and they are over it, they have antibodies for this, what's the research showing us? How long are they protected and how well are they protected if they have gone through this naturally?
Well, that's a great question. I think for everybody in Alabama that has had this virus, two things. Please go and donate plasma. It's really important. We think plasma can very much help individuals. We're still waiting on additional data. But if you were infected, please go to your local blood bank and donate plasma. So that's the first thing. Second thing, with any virus or any infectious disease, once you have it, you have what we call immunologic memory in most cases. And so even if you got re-exposed to the virus, even if you got infected, even in a little bit, you would rapidly control that virus and not get significant illness. And so we're tracking, obviously we only have 8 months experience with this virus, but CDC is doing an excellent job tracking. We have a whole project looking at antibodies over time, and that will really be important. And obviously, all of these individuals on these vaccine trials will be studied for a long time, both to look at safety and the long-term efficacy of each and every vaccine.
Doctor, the plasma, I know we're having good success with that. Is that fairly safe? And what if you've had somebody in your family who had it and recovered? Can you take plasma in advance to help protect yourself, or is that strictly after you have it and you're running a fever?
Well, that is a very smart question. So plasma and convalescent plasma has been used on infectious disease for really decades. There's another thing that we do with plasma, and we call it hyperimmune globulin. We actually concentrate the plasma antibodies that are effective against the virus, and we put it together, and we call it hyperimmune globulin, and that can be used for prevention. And so right now they are making hyperimmune globulin from plasma. That's why we're asking people to donate. And as they do that, they will be doing studies to see if that hyperimmune globulin that antibody that's concentrated from that yellow part of your blood, that when you go and get blood and you see there's a yellow part and a red part, that red part's your red blood cells, that yellow part contains the plasma. And really looking at those antibodies, collecting them, putting them together, and then seeing if they work in what you call a prophylaxis. So you're right on target. That's absolutely a way that you can do this. Of course, we have what we call monoclonal antibodies. Those are specifically made to do just also what you just discussed, both to work like convalescent plasma, but also work potentially as a prophylactic to give before so that you wouldn't get infected.
Well, the reason I ask, very selfish on my part, my daughter had it, got over it, and I'm just wondering, should I go get some plasma from her? And how would you even do that process?
Well, in your case, your daughter should give for the person that may need plasma that's in the hospital, but she can also give plasma.
She's young. She can produce a lot.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah. My goodness, she's only like 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we're going on these college campuses. These college students can be very helpful to donate plasma. They're really doing, I just want to call out the college students as I go on these campuses. They are really following these mask mandates, and the colleges and university have done such a terrific job in getting information out to the students, and the student body have been very responsive. When I was walking around Alabama and Mississippi over the last few days, I will tell you, though, the problem is the parents. So for the parents out there of college students, protect yourself, wear a mask, please.
Well, I was going to ask you that question because the young and the healthy certainly have got it at a high rate, but they haven't had, and there's always, if it's your child and they're the exception, then you really don't want to hear me talk about how rare that exception is. Because to you, it was a major deal. So I don't want to be insensitive to that. But, I know like in our state, in the show, by the way, you can talk about anything in the country because it goes all over the country. But in our state, we at one time we had 1,000 new cases on one campus, but we had no new hospitalizations. So they seem to handle it pretty well in the overwhelming majority. Is the herd immunity? Is it good that some of the younger, healthier people go ahead and get it and get past it?
Well, the issue always has been with herd immunity, and just to make it clear, herd immunity has always been discussed from the standpoint of vaccinating people and getting enough people vaccinated. So developing herd immunity to an infectious disease right now across the United States, except for New York City area, the number of people, even with the outbreaks that we have had, less than 10% have actually become infected. And so we are a long way from herd immunity. The only place that has a significant number of people with antibody is New York City. But if you look at northern New Jersey and the New York City metro area, they have 3 to 4 times the mortality rates of any other place in the country. So a significant number of people were infected in those places. And it makes sense because it was March and people really didn't know how to detect this virus. And so it was spreading silently. And now we know so much asymptomatic spread. But I don't think any state in the country wants to experience the mortality that it was experienced in New York City to get to that number of herd immunity through natural infection. We have these vaccines right now in clinical trial so that we can get to herd immunity in a scientific way by actually having a vaccine ready for the American people.
Dr. Birx, I know we're about out of time again, but I wanted to ask you, I think we're gonna tackle this. We're going to get it under control. It's going to take a little time. I know the Spanish flu took, a year and a half for it to run its course back in the day. But should we be concerned that this shows a weakness in our public health system? And the reason I ask that, is there another COVID further along out there that's going to come down the pipe, or is this truly the 100-year pandemic that we've always been told was out there?
So again, incredibly insightful question. And so after we move through this, and even now as we discuss it, we're really, one of our biggest issues is there's a disconnect between our clinical care system that actually sees the patients and our public health system. And really bringing those pieces together has been critically important. And I think in the long run, we really have to have not only a strengthening of our public health systems, but an integration of the information between our public health systems and our clinical care systems, because data is power and data is important knowledge to communities. And it's taken us a while to build those databases. Most states have excellent dashboards now, but we really need to really get to a place where we have an integrated data system so we have eyes across the country on any unusual disease that comes along, and it immediately is referred to our public health system.
Dr. Birx, thanks for being with us. I know you have been in high demand, and you guys have been working extremely hard.
Yeah, thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for working us in.
Well, thank you for your great questions.
Well, I didn't want to say anything, but Bubba, he's got some knowledge in the science area. He kind of.
Oh yeah.
Don't let the nickname fool you. Thank you, Dr. Birx.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
God bless you. We'll be right back.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Birx for being with us, but I think we all, but she was smitten with Bubba.
Y'all are funny.
You need to turn it down, Bub.
You emailers are hilarious.
Can I tell you?
Thank you for
there was
your comedy this morning.
There was a connection with Bubba and Dr. Birx.
There was.
I mean, she didn't care he was messing her name up.
No.
She didn't care at all.
I mean,
Birx. Birx.
there
Is
you
that
go.
okay?
Yeah.
There you go.
Didn't
Look,
Greg,
it don't matter, Bubba.
Greg,
it's
you,
good.
you don't hear that when you're in love.
That's true. Right?
I seriously went to
Love is
Wikipedia to
blind,
make
it's
sure.
also deaf.
Yeah.
I went to Wikipedia to make sure she was married.
Right.
All right.
Well,
I think she pictured herself on that pontoon, that scarf flying in the wind.
Oh, wow.
you know
That old scarf.
Down at
No.
Collages.
Oh, down at Collages.
I think
Having a root beer float together. It's too real now. Look.
Oh, boy.
some of you in email was wanting to know why I didn't bring up the co-mobility.
Mobility. Can't say it.
Morbidity
No,
rate.
just
the
stop.
co-morbidity.
This
rate.
is why you
Good
did.
night.
And
Goodness
so I
gracious.
just stay clear of it.
Right.
That and her name.
Right.
If you could have called her the wrong name and then tried to say that, that'd have been great.
We tried to get her to answer the question about what we could have done differently, and she just basically decided not to answer that.
Well, she said, which
Because it gets political.
is a good answer for someone in a political position, that it's been a learning curve, and they're changing as they learn more, and that's the only way you can say it without your opposition going, "You were wrong, you lied."
Right. Well,
So and when you ask a political person a question that you hope they're going to step outside of the politics, I mean, you're going to get what you expect, and I knew that, but I still wanted to ask it.
yeah, and I couldn't break her heart by saying the college students are behaving now because they're afraid you're going to keep the bar shut down.
Yeah.
That helps.
You and the mayors that keep closing the bars on them for 2 weeks, that got their attention.
Hey, guys, this stuff's getting serious.
That's like a choke. That's like a choke collar on a dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? That'll get your attention.
Rick and Bubba.